This is From Both Sides, a spontaneous, free-flowing conversation featuring a dynamic team of women, providing insights into both political and civic events affecting the lives of women throughout Pennsylvania. And now, here's your host.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of From Both Sides. I'm Michelle Saletto, your host. Today we'll be discussing global education, what it means, and why every Pennsylvania student should be a global-ready graduate. Our classrooms, our workplace, and our economy have all expanded over the years to become global environments. To be successful, we all need to understand the interdependence between what we do in Pennsylvania and the rest of the world. Joining me today for our discussion is my guest co-host, Jeannie Arnold. She is a well-known civic leader in central Pennsylvania and philanthropist, and quite the world traveler herself. Jeannie, welcome.
Thank you.
And tell us where you've been lately.
Well, just the month of August and September, we were in Japan, China, and then Paris.
Okay, great. Well, you'll have a great perspective on our discussion on global education today.
I hope so.
Okay, so let me introduce our guest today. Our guest is Dr. Ariel Armani. He is the Senior Director of International Programs and the Director of the University Center for International Studies at the University of Pittsburgh. One of our show's sponsors, I might add, so thank you very much. Ariel has an extensive background in international studies with a specialty in Latin American relations. I'll also note he has a PhD in political science, which I think is a great combination because I love everyone who can talk about politics because I think it does have a big impact on our lives and our world. Author of numerous books, a Fulbright scholar, and a frequent news commentator. So, Ariel, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Dr. Harmony. And could you tell us a little bit? We understand you were born and raised in Argentina, and then you came to the United States. Could you tell us why you came to our country?
Well, Argentina is a country that has experienced frequent economic and political crises, and so in 1989 we were under a situation that was very unique. We had a phenomenon called hyperinflation. That means an inflation rate of, at the time, it was 12,000% per year.
That is hard to imagine.
It's very difficult to imagine. Something similar happened in Germany before the Nazi regime in Weimar, Germany, and you probably saw the bills that were stamped with billions. So essentially, this is a situation in which it's very difficult to conduct any kind of business, and you can't sign a contract. You don't know how much things are going to cost tomorrow. So in that context, my wife and I decided that it was time to take a break, and essentially that was how we thought about it. And so we decided to come to the United States to pursue a master's degree in international affairs. And so we ended up going to Ohio University in Athens, Ohio, and we worked on our master's there, and I liked it, and it was a very good experience, so I decided to go for a PhD in political science, and after considering a number of offers, I accepted an offer from the University of Pittsburgh. And well, I'm here.
Okay.
So one thing led to another, and essentially I developed my career in the United States, where I have worked at various institutions, but also I have lived in other countries. For example, when I was a Fulbright scholar, I lived in China.
Wonderful.
So do you think your ability that you've had, the opportunities you've had to travel internationally has really led to your interest in and your understanding of global education?
I think so. I think so. I think that one of the extraordinary opportunities that I've had in my career is actually to travel around the world, to engage with a very wide variety of individuals, because I have met presidents, and I have worked at the grassroots. I have been to very remote areas doing research with peasants and other organizations, and so I had the opportunity to actually engage and get to know a very diverse group of people, not only in terms of what they do, but also in terms of their cultural context.
Could you tell us a little bit of why you think it's important for students to have global education?
Well, we live in a world in which we cannot ignore global connections. That's the first thing, and so it is absolutely critical to understand where we are and the kinds of links that we have with the world. And so this means that students need to acquire a number of skills, and this is what we usually call global competence. And global competence can be defined in various ways, but essentially we can start talking about it in three ways.
Okay.
First is about awareness. Second is about understanding. And third, engagement. So what does that mean? Awareness means that I look at myself and I look at where I am in the wider context of the world. Because we are here in central Pennsylvania, but we have a number of connections that are linking us to the country, to the hemisphere, and to the world. When we buy something, when we engage in activities like social media, when we work with technology, etc., etc. Also because we have to be aware of a number of things that happen around us that are connected to broader global themes. Then in terms of understanding, this is absolutely crucial, particularly in the job market. We need to be able to understand problems from different perspectives. This is one of the skills that employers value the most, because the kinds of problems that we face require that we position ourselves in different perspectives in order to understand how others would look at a problem. And finally, we want students who are engaged. That is, we need to think about ways in which we add to the classroom opportunities for the students to interact with their environment, and there are many opportunities in the local environment to be thinking about the world. That is, the local is very global, and that's an extraordinary possibility for our students.
Well, you know, it's interesting in talking, Jeannie and I, looking at research for this program. I mean, a couple things we learned were that Pennsylvania is one of the 10 top states that exports to other countries. And I just don't think people are aware of that. We export about $40 billion. We exported about $40 billion of products and services to other countries from Pennsylvania in 2014. So that obviously has implications for what you talked about in terms of the job market and the skills students are going to need when they go out and look for work.
Absolutely. And another element to add to the numbers that you were quoting is that I think it's about 90% of the businesses in Pennsylvania engaged in export are small and medium-sized businesses. So these are not large corporations where you have a division that is dealing with the international global engagement. These are businesses that need to understand the global connection. They need their employees to actually be competent in terms of understanding how the company engages internationally. So it's a very, very important skill for Pennsylvanians.
Yes, and helpful to build our economy.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely.
almost critical. Do you find that your students who graduate from the university's programs are better able to, or more easily able to find work in international markets and with companies in Pennsylvania because of this kind of skill and background that they're acquiring?
Absolutely. It's just it's a great advantage. They are positioned very, very well in terms of their opportunities in the job market. Two things that are very important. One is this global competence, this understanding. The other one, language skills. Language skills open a unique door for students, and they take them in a path that I would say that 100% of the time is a path of success. It's just unbelievable, the stories that I hear about how the decision, sometimes, it's just casual decision that a student makes. They say, I'm going to try a language, and they get excited and they go that route. And then years later, they said, you can't imagine how that language opened a
Opened the doors.
completely new door for me, and now I'm doing these amazing things that would not have been possible without that language.
I found it just when we were in Paris, and I had 4 years of French in high school. Figured I'd completely lost it, but then when I got there and started to use it, there were things that came back that I didn't think I'd ever remember. But you could just see the reaction from the people that, they were so pleased that I was trying to speak their language. And we need more of that in our country where we have more language skills.
Absolutely, because when you learn a language, you are doing a number of things. First of all, of course, you understand another culture. It's really a full way to understand another culture. Then, of course, you have an instrument that allows you, obviously, to communicate. Also, there is a lot of research about the benefits of learning another language in terms of our intellectual analytical capacities. Even there is some research that connects these with the health of our brain as we age. Because
that would help.
Yeah, because the portions of the brain that we use to learn another language essentially are sections of the brain that need to be exercised constantly as we age in order to prevent various kinds of diseases.
So let me ask you this. How do you see Pennsylvania schools compared to schools in other parts of the world? Are we holding up our own in terms of language development with our students, other languages in our schools?
I think that we need to do much better.
I do too.
I think that we need to do much better. I'm going to give you an example. We, at the University of Pittsburgh, we have a very distinguished Confucius Institute. And this is an institute which is supported by the government of China. And this institute focuses on teaching Chinese, Mandarin Chinese, to students in schools across Pennsylvania. So we serve, actually it's in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and now New York. And we serve over 5,000 students who learn Chinese and are going to be much better prepared for the job market. And the reality is that we offer that opportunity, we pay for it, but otherwise that would not exist.
That's terrific. I'm going to take a moment right now and we're going to hear from our sponsors and we'll be right back.
From Both Sides is a production of the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy and is made possible by the support of the Pennsylvania Center for Women and Politics at Chatham University, a nonpartisan center devoted to fostering women's public leadership through education, empowerment, and action. The first to focus on women's political involvement in Pennsylvania, the center integrates disciplinary knowledge, civic education, and capacity building, while examining the intersection of women and public policy. From Both Sides is also supported as a public service by Saul Ewing LLP, a law firm with a 100-year tradition of serving the needs of business, government, education, healthcare, technology, and manufacturing in our region. And by the University Center for International Studies, the engine for extending the global reach of the University of Pittsburgh and its students.
Welcome back to From Both Sides. We're talking today about the importance of global education for Pennsylvania students. And just to finish the point we were talking about in the first segment, we talked about language acquisition and how important it is for all of our students, both from kindergarten through seniors, to learn another language and be skilled in other languages. And I'll just mention that when I was a school superintendent, and this is, again, maybe one of those things I might have been slightly ahead of my times because this was the end of the 90s, I put in place a program where we began teaching French to our kindergarten students. So the idea was each year through their 12 years in our school, they would have exposure to a language and hopefully graduate as bilingual in one or more languages. I'm sure that after I left, I'm not sure anybody loved that program enough to move it forward, but it was important to me at the time to begin to have students consider those needs to be a more global citizen. So I would think that some of the language programs you offer at the University of Pittsburgh meet that need. Are there some unique languages you offer and recommend in terms of the growing global environment, or?
Well, yes. I mean, we offer more than 30 languages.
Wow.
So we have
That's
one of the
amazing.
best programs in the United States. But some of the key languages are Chinese, Mandarin Chinese, Portuguese, Arabic, Turkish, and then the languages more traditional like French, etc. So these are the languages that are very, very important, popular. We've seen a growing popularity of Korean as well, and so there is more and more interest in that. And so essentially, what's important to understand is that to be able to speak another language doesn't need to be understood as mastering another language. That is, if a student can do that, that's fantastic. But simply to know a little bit of another language goes a long way. If you want to actually have a business deal and you start in another country with the local language, I bet you that you're going to do much, much better because it shows respect. It shows that you care. It shows that you are willing to go outside your comfort zone in order to meet the other individual. Those are things that are very, very important. It's more important sometimes to consider that than knowing certain things about how you do business.
Well, the other thing you mentioned that I thought was really important also, learning a language helps you to understand the culture. And again, how do we all collaborate and do better and working together? It's by understanding each other's perspectives and be willing to work together to collaborate and cooperate. So I think it may be some advice you want to give the Pennsylvania General Assembly right now. I don't know, because I think they need some help in finalizing the budget and things. But let's talk a little bit more about the University of Pittsburgh's governor's schools for students in high schools. I know that you ran a governor's school for many years for international studies, and that around 2009, because of budget constraints, monies were cut from the state budget, and I know that that was the demise of a number of governor's schools in the state. And so could you talk for the viewers a little bit about what a governor's school is and what specifically you did there at the University of Pittsburgh?
Well, a governor's school is an institution that offers high school sophomores and seniors specific training in an area. In our case, it was on global and international studies. So what we are thinking and very excited about the possibility of reopening the governor's school for global and international studies at the University of Pittsburgh, making that a 4-week or 6-week intensive residential program during the summer targeted to the best students in the state who will come to the school for free and will have the very best training in understanding global and international issues, and at the same time they will learn a language. So it's a fantastic opportunity to get them into this topic and get them prepared then for college when it comes to global and international
That would be
issues.
an amazing
Positive.
opportunity, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
Now,
Absolutely.
for students to apply, would they have to already be proficient in a language, or can they just come?
No. What we want are students who are very good students and who are motivated. That's the most important thing, because we want students who are going to love what they do, who are creative, who are willing to engage with other students, with the teachers, and have a wonderful experience. You can imagine that can be an experience that changes your life, that essentially gives you a sense of the kinds of things that you can do, and it opens new dreams, because one thing that I always like to say to, particularly to high school students, is think that you can achieve anything you want. And don't think that what you do locally doesn't have global implications, because it does. And so this is an opportunity for them to actually experience that and start thinking about those opportunities.
I think it's also a motivator for the students that if they, if it would be, if they would learn about this early in the freshman year, that this is a possibility that it might motivate them to be better students, so that they
Absolutely.
could go to the governor's school. So it would definitely, I think, be, really an inspiration to children.
So are you looking for funding from the state? Is that it? What is necessary for you to reopen the governor's school at the University of Pittsburgh for global studies?
Well, we are looking for different sources of funding. I think that private funding will be very important. We want to make these sustainable, and we are working and talking to a number of individuals to see if we can put together the resources that are necessary to support the school. And so this is exactly where we are right now, and I hope that we can achieve this goal. There is one important thing that I wanted to say, that and I like to illustrate. We all know what this is, and we know that students love their phones, and that a phone opens tons of opportunities. But there is something else that opens tons of opportunities, and it's this.
Yes.
Passport.
Passport. Right.
So it would be so nice for all the students in the state of Pennsylvania to have a passport, and to
great
really
idea.
embrace the idea that a passport is like a phone, that a passport opens all these opportunities that are absolutely extraordinary and that can take you to so many places.
Would that be something that through a governor's school you would get a passport through the school, or I mean, is that
That's
a possibility?
That's
It's a great
something that we
idea.
can do.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
great idea. It's a great idea. We can work something out where essentially they get their passport when
It really
they
would be a great
graduate from
idea.
the governor's school.
That would be a great
That would be
idea.
wonderful.
Tell us a little bit along that vein about your study abroad program at the University of Pittsburgh.
We have an extraordinary set of programs around the world, in many countries, in all the regions of the world, and we are very proud of our own Panther programs, because we have a combination of programs that are provided by other organizations, but particularly we are unique in the sense that we have our own programs. So they are staffed with our own faculty. They are focused on particular issues that we consider important, and we can closely oversee the quality of these programs. So these are very popular programs. We are growing every year in terms of the number of students who are joining our study abroad opportunities, and I have to say that we are very proud in the sense that nationally we have one of the very best study abroad programs in the country.
Well, that's great. You know, one of the other pieces of research we came up with was that during 2014 there were over 40,000 international students in our Pennsylvania colleges, and they contributed $1.4 billion to our Pennsylvania economy. So I'm not sure anybody thinks of it like that. When we go to other countries or when their students come to our state, it's really helping our economy as well.
Absolutely.
Sure it is.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And also, many of these students will stay connected to the region, and if they go, some of them will get jobs, and
Like you did? Like you and your wife did?
in my
right?
case, and some of them, many of them, will go back to their countries, and they will not sever ties. Actually, when they are in a position, for example, to look for partners, where are they going to look for?
True.
They're going to, in our case, go back to Pittsburgh and look for partners there. If they think about opportunities for investment, they are going to do that.
So further international relationships.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes,
Yeah,
those are
it's a great
extremely
opportunity.
valuable.
Well, if you could think of one thing, if we're speaking to school administrators, because I'm a former school administrator myself, If you could say one thing to school administrators in Pennsylvania right now who are perhaps don't have global competency programs in their schools, most don't, what would maybe be a starting point or one thing they could do to start looking at expanding skills for students in global education? Where might they start, or what might be one or two things you'd recommend they could do?
Well, let me answer that with very concrete suggestions, because I can propose the development of programs, etc. And of course, that's complicated. We don't have the funds. People don't have the time. But I found that there are some simple ways to start talking about that. For example, a project in which students have to research their roots.
The roots,
Sure.
their ancestry.
Because one way or another, they are going to have to look at other countries. And that is going to connect them to this global dimension. Why somebody way back in their families, or maybe recently, decided to immigrate to the United States? What was happening with the global economy at the time? What was happening in that country? What kinds of things? What were the forces at the time? Were there any epidemics at the time? What happened in terms of the economy, health, international relations? Very easy. It's a very, very easy project that immediately will do something also very important. Will engage the families.
Yes, true. Absolutely.
Because they will be talking to the parents, to the grandparents, and they will be digging into photographs and documents. And that's a very, very easy way in which you can get everybody excited and start talking about global and international issues and make it personal.
Right, it's true. What about Ancestry.com?
Exactly. There are so many interesting tools right
Yeah.
now in the internet that they can use for free. And so this is a very easy way. Another way is to, for example, to choose a sports team in another country and start following that team.
Well, that ought to get a
That'll
few
do
students
it.
interested
Yeah.
as well. Well, you know, it seems like we have so much to talk about with you, with global education, and also about the University of Pittsburgh and all of your outstanding programs. I just don't think we have enough time for that because we're drawing near the end of our program. But I hope, Dr. Armani, you'll come back and join us again. And perhaps be able to unveil the opening of the next governor's school. We
That
hope
would
for,
be my
for global
pleasure.
studies. Wouldn't that be terrific?
That would be terrific.
Well, thank you for joining us, and I would like to thank the viewers for joining us today. And we hope that you feel, as we do, that as women in Pennsylvania, there is much more that unites us, despite our political differences, than divides us. So I hope you'll join us again on your local Comcast station, on demand, or YouTube for another edition of From Both Sides. Thank you, Jeannie.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Ariel. It's
Thank
great
you.
to have you.
Great, thank you.